Welcome to the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast, bringing you the country's top podcast on the subject of internet marketing. I'm your host, Glenn Thayer, and today we're going to discuss closing website leads. I'm here with the CEO of Intuitive Websites, Thomas Young. Yes, you know him from past podcasts. Well, something you don't know, however, is that Tom actually has a book on Amazon called Intuitive Selling. So in addition to web marketing, I'm sure all of our listeners want to know about your background in sales and marketing.
Well, absolutely. I actually started as a sales manager back in the early 80s. That's how I started my career in business. And from my work as a sales manager, I progressed into marketing work. And then from that, really getting into technology when the web came out. So I'm kind of an accidental web marketer. And I think pretty much everybody is an accidental web marketer because of how the internet came upon us.
Well, I think that was just a natural transition, though. You go from normal sales, the sales on the web is a natural transition.
Yeah, it is a transition because for me, it was pretty easy because I always loved technology. As a sales manager, I love technology. And I just had so much fun with the internet that I really stayed with it and started doing business, consulting and doing internet marketing. And the book Intuitive Selling was written in 2000. It's still for sale on Amazon. And it's appropriate to talk about this because I think that getting the lead in the door from the web is a great thing. But then what do you do once the lead is in the door?
Well, in our last podcast, we talked about conversions and getting those conversions from the looky-loos. And so now we have a web lead, but obviously we all know in sales that the money only comes when you close the sale. So how do we close web leads?
Well, it's so critical to understand that web leads are very important. And really the biggest mistake companies make is they think of web leads as maybe being looky-loos or not important, when in fact it's the opposite that's true. And the real payoff from web marketing is going to be in closing these leads. Some leads are closed directly online and through e-commerce, and some through your sales team. The turning the leads into business is really the key thing. And really, I guess the bottom line is most companies do not handle this well.
What do most companies usually do when web leads come in?
Well, most sales teams give more importance to what's right in front of them, the caller on the phone right now, the account they've been working with in the past. So when a lead comes in via email, it looks kind of like whatever. It's real easy to ignore. It's real easy to bypass and not get back to. And that's really one of the reasons why that happens. And also, a lot of salespeople don't understand technology. They don't understand what the sales lead has gone through to get to that point of actually contacting them.
Well, talking about that, how do web leads, how do they differ from other types of leads?
Well, this is what is so important for salespeople to understand and companies to understand. When someone submits information to you, it is a big step. Okay, because what they've done is they've gone from their anonymous research on the web, where they've been floating around on websites and looking at information, and then they've decided to contact you. That's a big step. And it also means that they're further along into your sales process than someone that you're calling back or someone you're pursuing or someone that maybe called you based on an ad they saw or a Yellow Page ad. So these leads are very important.
So you can assume that the person that's contacting you via web lead has done their homework, and they said, hey, you know what? I want to buy.
Absolutely. And and because of that, they're further along in the sales process. So, we've talked about our website marketing process, which is the 4 steps of getting a strategy, design and development, building traffic, and then measuring and monitoring performance. Those are the 4 steps that we talk about quite a bit.
So would you say there's a 5th step?
Well, really, this is the 5th step. And the 5th step would be, once the website has done its job, what do you do with that hot lead that comes in? In the traditional sales process, you would have things like prospecting, going out and looking for business, qualifying, which is making sure this person is right for you, the right candidate for your offering, then presenting and dealing with objections, and then closing. That's kind of the traditional sales process. But for a web lead, they have really skipped the first 2 parts of this. And in fact, they're well into your presenting phase when you talk to them. So these are people that you should move into the closing and trial closing pretty quickly.
Now, would it be fair to say that the people that are contacting you via web lead, they are ready to buy with the exception of a few questions that you may need to answer? It may be a pricing issue. It may be, can you serve me better than XYZ company?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that really the bottom line is you have to understand what they're doing and what they're about. To do that, you've got to get inside their head. You've got to talk to them, and you've got to ask questions and be a listener. The biggest mistake most salespeople make is they talk too much and they don't listen enough. And with the website lead who's done their homework anonymously and then finally decided to contact you, this is the time to really sit back and listen. Find out what their impressions are about the research they've already done. You don't need to present. They've already been on your website. They've seen your offerings, if your website's done its job. So take these people seriously. Realize that your website either is a finalist or has won out in their research. And then make sure you spend time listening and realize that you're close to a sale and you can move a little bit quicker than for someone you just talked to for the first time about your offering.
Well, a lot of leads don't buy. Sometimes people just put it out there and let's just see, and they might be the looky-loos who've taken the next step. How do you follow up with leads that are from the web? What's the best way from a follow-up system standpoint?
Yeah, you said the key word is that you have to have a process or a system. And this is another huge mistake that sales teams make, is they don't have a system. They basically say when the sales leads come in on the web, do something with them. Call them, get in touch, whatever. But, you've got to have a process, and because of technology, you can automate this process.
Now, would that be like with an autoresponder?
Oh, it's so many different things you can do. It really depends on the type of business you're in. Let's take an example of like the real estate business. Okay, someone's out there and they've done their research. They found a home or a neighborhood they're interested in, and they contact a real estate agent. I mean, that's huge. That's a huge lead. And in a lot of cases, a real estate agent is thinking, well, I got to meet some people. I need to do an open house. I need to go network, give out some business cards, and the web leads can get forgotten. When in fact, those are huge hot leads for this real estate person. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that when that lead comes in, you can ask some qualifying questions that will put them in the right kind of follow-up process. If you need that. I mean, you might be the point where you're going to meet with them immediately and start showing homes. But that follow-up process should be defined by what they're looking to do. And it might be things like their price point for a home, or it might be things like, their relocation time frame, or what areas they're interested in, or what cities they might be moving to, and that sort of thing. One critical thing in all of this is that you move quickly. In fact, it's our opinion, we've seen this with our clients. The faster you move on a web lead, the better the chances are that you'll get a conversion. The faster you move them through your sales process, even if they're not going to buy for 6 months. Okay, the faster you move them through that process, the better chances that you're going to have in closing that sale. There's a lot of different terms used for this kind of thing. I mean, you could call it a stay-in-touch program, a nurturing marketing program, but basically what it is, it's the concept of developing an automated system for staying in touch with web leads, usually via email, and following up with them as you're building a relationship from a sales standpoint.
Now, is that something when you're following up as far as the sales system for follow-up, is that something where you're finding a trend with companies being able to do more of an opt-in email marketing where the lead, the person who's generating the lead, can actually choose how they want to be contacted, how often they want to be contacted, and for which items? I mean, you used real estate as an example. So if somebody says, hey, I want to know about information when homes become for sale in this area.
Yeah, I want to know. One great thing is I want to know when something changes on the selection of homes that I'm looking at. So if there's a price change, or if it goes under contract, or if it goes off the market, those kind of things, the client needs to be notified that that's happening, because that impacts their decision to buy that home. The thing about the automated program is you don't want clients to have to work too hard, because you've got to be real strategic about it, because we know that the longer a form is, the less likely people will complete that form. So keep it to 2 or 3 areas. If you can ask them 2 or 3 pieces of information, that puts them in the right bucket for your Stay in Touch program.
Well, so that'd be good to have little check boxes, and they may say, here's the areas that we can inform you on. Check the ones you're interested in.
Right. Check that. Yeah. And that helps you with your Stay in Touch program. And then, of course, even as automated as you can be, you still need to have some personal follow-up. And that is also a system or a process. Your sales team should have some kind of contact software or CRM software that reminds them, hey, it's time to touch bases with these leads again. just doing it automated alone, I think you'll lose a lot of leads doing that.
Now, would you suggest on doing that when you're having your sales team put up, would that be something else you would put in maybe the form to stay in touch? For the Stay in Touch program says, would you like our sales team to contact you via telephone or via email? What is your preferred method of contact?
Yeah, every marketplace is different. Okay, and when you have, like, for example, a real high-tech marketplace, they're going to want more contact with they may not call them a salesperson, they may not call them a technical advisor or something like that. But for the most part, most web users, they want to drive the contact. They want to, when they're ready, they want to contact you. But what you want to do with your Stay in Touch program is function as a reminder for them. So for the most part, you want to say, hey, tell us what you're looking to do, and then we'll take care of the follow-up part. Having said that, if it's a high-tech market, there might be cases where they would definitely want to talk to a tech advisor on a regular basis.
Now, there's a lot of different trends that are out there in the marketplace on the web as far as generating leads. What are some of the trends that you've seen that are really popular these days? Well,
I want to talk about trends because I guess the bottom line with these trends, there's 4 things we've identified with the whole concept of how you deal with leads off the web. And the first trend is it is growing. And it's going to get huge. I mean, the web is becoming the number one source for folks looking for business solutions, especially in B2B. And for consumers, it's a huge source. In fact, we're doing this podcast over the holidays, and we're watching holiday sales online. They are going to set another record this year. They're going to exceed the forecasters' projections for what they thought would happen online. People want to buy online. It's convenient, So anyway, it's growing.
Don't have to fight the malls.
Don't have to fight the malls or the weather and all that. So it's growing. And as younger people come into the marketplace and they have money to spend, it's going to grow even more. The second area is that it's mixed in how it works. And what I mean by that is that you need to listen to our previous podcast. We talked about, I think, over a dozen different ways that people convert from a website to a lead. And so they won't always do it via email or a form. They're also going to call you. They're going to drive out to your office. All these other ways of converting. You've got to track those things, okay? And a web lead, no matter how they convert, still goes into your follow-up process. Okay, that's the second thing. The third thing is that it's technology-driven. And what I'm saying by that is that the technology will drive the follow-up in both automated and human cases. The technology is what's going to drive the systems to put people into the right follow-up bucket and to remind you to follow up, and then also to help you with the messaging that needs to happen at the right time. That's the third area. And then finally, and we probably haven't stressed this enough in this podcast, but it's the speedy response time. And I know we were talking earlier about the fact that you should be able to talk to people while they're still on your website.
There's some things that I think the biggest concern that comes up for a lot of the entrepreneurs that are out there that may be sole proprietors, and they say, hey, I've got myself. I am my business. There isn't another person. And so when they're competing with companies who have a complete sales force, they say if a web lead comes in, I'm not in the office.
Yes.
How do I get that? I may have just started my business. And I don't have a web-enabled phone, or I don't have those things.
Absolutely.
There's something really interesting that I have found that I'm sure it's in other industries as well, but I've seen in the disc jockey industry. When somebody wants to hire a disc jockey for an event or for a wedding, they can actually go onto a website. Let's say it's a business's website, ABC DJ Company, and can check availability. Mm-hmm. And if that person is interested in that company, they've seen the website, says, I'm interested.
Yes.
They can put in their information, and it generates a lead.
Right.
Well,
absolutely.
that lead gets sent to the cell phone of that business owner. And how great is that to be able to get a message somewhere else?
A text message.
You get a text message that says, this person's interested. You can call them from your cell phone.
Yeah,
and
here's
call
they call that phone number. Yeah.
Call that lead while they're still on your website.
Right. No matter where you are. That's right. And the thing about doing that is that the technology is there to make it happen. If they're going to put their phone number in a field and send that information to you, there's no reason why that information can't show up as a text message, and you click on the phone number right there on your phone, and you're talking to the client. Now, people might say, oh, we're going to piss off clients doing that, aren't we? I mean, gosh, they don't want to be, but that's not the case. If they're on their website, they want to hear from you.
And if they've put their phone number in, they're going to obviously do that. And if there's enough fields, like I said, the ones I've seen have been rather short. They're usually 5 fields to fill in, and there's a place for comments so they can put specific information. And that's easy.
Yeah.
That's a really simple thing.
Absolutely.
Now, we do have on our next podcast, we're going to actually extend into the sales process, talk about the rest of the sales process, aren't we, Tom?
Right. Yeah.
Well, we end each of our podcasts with an action item plan. So what are the key action items for our listeners?
Well, I think that there's a few. There's a handful here. The first thing I want you to do is to sit back and evaluate, what are you currently doing with leads? Are they being ignored? Are they being given less attention that they need to be given? Evaluate what's currently happened with the leads off your website. And make sure that you're looking at leads as not just coming from the web via email and a form, but any type of lead coming from your website. Review your process or system then for handling these leads. It would be a great idea if you could to survey a few web leads and ask them what they would like to see, and even perhaps use a secret shopper service to go in and have someone submit a lead and see how quickly they get responded to and what happens. Also develop then a process for handling these leads, and think about it as a system, as something that is automated. It's going to happen no matter who's in there in the sales team, and it'll definitely lead to results for you. And then finally, develop a stay-in-touch email program for all leads, and in fact for all buyers on your site. Listen to this podcast again and pick up some key pointers and develop that process, and you'll see some success.
Isn't that great? You can listen to these podcasts over and over and over and over again.
That's right.
Take all the notes you want. Well, folks, this has been the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast. So for more information and to see all the available podcasts and much more, visit intuitivewebsites.com.